Good afternoon, evening, and welcome to Daily Ed Talk, where we engage in provoking discussions, all things education. I am here with three moms because this episode that we're talking about is parent engagement and what it looks like in the class. Sometimes those lines are blurred, and that's why we call this blurred lines. There is some boundaries between teacher and parent, but there also is this engagement that is needed between the two. So, what does that look like? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, I have three lovely moms here. They can just introduce themselves, tell us where they're from, how many children they have, talk about your children, what's something you enjoy that you've learned as a mom. And yeah, we can go forth with that. Let's start with Tatiana.
Hi, I'm Tatiana. I am a mom of two boys, 5 and 3. Their names are Malachi and Gabriel. And I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Something I enjoy about my kids the most, they're very vibrant and full of energy, which is something I'm not used to, but I enjoy it.
Okay, Shannon.
Hi, my name is Shannon Moore. I am a mom of two. One is 13 and the other is 12. From born and raised in Maryland. Um, both of my children are very caring, but I can recognize where with my daughter she's very creative and how her mind can be all over the place, like me. And my son is very you know very structured, very you know on top of things like my husband. So those are things I really enjoy seeing where one is more like me or one is more like him. So that's cool.
Hi, I'm Kim Gentry. I am a mom of two. My son is Lynn, and he's 6 years old, first grade, and my daughter is going to be 2 next week. And I enjoy them. They are both insane. And my son, he is creative. He's funny, and he's learning how to accept being taught and being wrong. So that's where we are right now. And I'm originally from California, and I live in the DMV area, and I've lived here since December 2017. And yeah, that's what's up. Nice to meet you guys.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming into my space. With COVID and all that, I would want this in a more formal type of environment, like my classroom, basically. But we don't want the Rona. We don't want the Rona. So with some conversations about parent engagement, and I know most of your kids are in school or in some type of schooling, and this is, of course, I'm talking about before COVID. They were either in a school or a daycare system. So talk to me of what you feel like parent engagement in an academic setting is. What does it look like, or what are your expectations of parent engagement with like a teacher or a school or a daycare?
Well, I'll go. My kids are not doing the Zoom. My son is not doing the Zoom school, but when he did do the Zoom, everyone was new to it, and I think it was there were really good parts and parts that needed improvement. But I think what I noticed is that when you have young children, you're doing a lot of the teaching with the child. Um, so I definitely think teaching is a gift. I come from a family of educators, and teaching is a gift and a skill that a lot of parents, we don't have naturally. So like those memes that have like the parent sitting by the Zoom with the belt, or those funny videos of a parent repeating the same question over and over again. What's 2 plus 2? What's 2 plus 2? And they going off. So it's like, for me, it's like, honestly, I don't realize how wrong I'm teaching until like you come and you're like, okay, this is what to expect and this is how you should go. So I just think there should be not only teaching the child, but teaching us how to teach. And I know this is new, so I get it. But like, I didn't know how to teach with the Zoom as it was going. So I just feel like if I would have known, like, okay, this is what we're doing in class, but this is how you should reinforce the information, or this is what you should look for, or the pace you should be going, then it would give me a better idea of like what I should be doing. Like even simple things when you tell me, okay, focus on one book a week, not a book a day, or a book like, oh, okay, I didn't understand that. So I think it's just a matter of us learning how you guys have God-given gifts and skills that you have learned. It's about us trying to learn that too, because we're not teachers. So I don't know. I just think we need the education more too. So
Yeah, for sure. Exactly like Kim was saying, we have to, as parents, we have to learn how to teach, and especially during this time of remote learning. And I don't have older children, I only have small kids. And both of my children are special needs children. My 2-year-old, he's autistic, and then my other one, he has ADD. So on top of that, and having to encapsulate all of that and teach them on top of that, it's a lot and it's overwhelming. And on the parent engagement side, you have to be as patient with the teachers as you are with your children, because it's not just your kids they have to teach, they got to teach a whole bunch of other kids and deal with a whole bunch of other parents. So as a parent, you kind of want to keep that in mind, because the parent engagement part comes in. Like, we're supposed to support each other because we want what's best for our children, just like we hope and pray that the teachers want the same thing as well. So we have to kind of keep track of each other. Like, we have to stay on top of our kids, stay on top of ourselves, stay on top of our teachers, to make sure we're all on the same page and getting everything done. And like Kim said, teaching is a skill, and oh my gosh, it is a God-given gift, because it is so hard. I've had to call my cousin, who is a teacher, and let her know what's going on. I was like, I don't know what to do. Can you please help me? Because this is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I guess I remember when COVID really first hit and they said that everyone was going to be learning at home. I felt worse for my friends with younger kids because I could not imagine having elementary, kindergarten age, or even infant children at this time. So I am praying for y'all. I am. With my kids, I think for like my son, he's very, very organized, straight A student. He's more so with him is keeping him organized, because smart people mess everywhere. So getting him to be like, okay, did you write this in your planner and stuff like that. For my daughter, she was transitioning from elementary school to middle school. So this was the first experience she had in changing classes altogether. So like the first few weeks, we got so many notifications of her not making it to different classes because, it's just a lot. It's like this box, that box, and even though she had a schedule, it still was a little anxiety for her, I think. But one thing that I always did at the beginning of the school year, when we went into school, was I was very upfront with all the teachers, like, hey, this is my child. Like, for instance, with my daughter, like, look, she'll try to get over on you, okay? So you can be nice, but don't be too nice, or else she'll walk all over you, okay? Like, I know my child, and we're here to help you, any way we can at home, but you got to let us know. So at the beginning of this school year, what I did is I emailed each one of their teachers and was just like, hi, this is my name, yes, my husband and I work. However, if you need to reach us, it's best to reach us by text. If you can't reach us by text, feel free to shoot an email and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. But just let us know before stuff snowballs, and stuff like that, so that we can best help you, because we're working. My husband and I both go to work, so they're here on their own. So it's like really calling on them to step up their responsibility factors. But it is a constant checking, like, we're always on the little, I don't know if you guys' school have it, but they have an app where you can see their grades. You can see what assignments they missed. So it's like constantly checking that at work, checking this, call this, it is a balancing act. And I can't imagine having small kids. I don't wish it on no, but I am. I be praying for y'all, boy.
Keep praying. Stay on your knees.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, but you guys kind of touched even on my next question is what is the role of the teacher in all of this? And you guys have said it. The first thing is we have to be patient, not with just the students, but we have to be patient with the students' parents. And I think that's the base of parent engagement in an academic setting. Is first, let's have this patience. And then I'm hearing you guys say too, communication obviously is the next main key. In communicating what is needed from both sides. So you're letting us know, okay, this is my child. This is how you can best connect with my child. And then the last thing that I wrote down here is just training parents. That's the most difficult thing you can, and I can say is difficult for me as a teacher. Because me being 26 years old and me being a teacher for now 4 or 5 years, I guess 4 years, parents don't give me, and I'm just being honest, parents don't give me that same respect as they would someone who's been in the game maybe 10 years, got 3, 4 degrees and certifications behind their name. And it's difficult for me because they look at me as their child or their older, younger sibling. So it's harder for them to communicate or for me to say, this is what I believe your child should do. And that's another premise of this whole conversation is when is that trust or when is that trust built or how is it built with the teacher? How do you instill in the teacher that I trust you with my child? Where does that come from? What does it look like? How do you express that to a teacher?
So when we lived in Atlanta, Shia's second grade teacher was really young, really good looking, really young. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be good for her, because some people, you just know your children. But what made me even more comfortable with him, even though I don't even think he was probably your age, he might have been maybe 23, 24. But what made me so comfortable was when we went into his classroom, you saw how organized it was. And when he talked to you, he was like, this is the kind of teacher I am. This is how I'll communicate with you. It was laid out. It didn't just seem like, hey, I'm Shia's teacher, I'm Duran's teacher, nice to meet you. And then that's it. It was like, this is what your child is going to be experiencing with me through the school year. This is what I expect from your child. Yeah. If I have any problems, I'm the type of person I would rather you contact me by email rather than calling and trying to come up. Just like him said, setting those expectations up front, because then you're not surprised when you get 5,000 emails, I think when I can tell that someone is very intentional about what they're doing, I'm more at ease. It doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been. If you come at me and you're like, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm doing it, then it's like, oh, okay. Right. How can I help you?
That's a good point. I agree with that, because then you don't have to question, well, how do they communicate? Well, how do they speak to my child? How do they, teach, or what is their style? Or you don't have to start searching and figuring out. It's kind of like, okay, here, let me just tell you straight up. This is how I roll. This is how I teach. This is what I expect. If I have problems, this is how I'm gonna reach you. This is how I want you to reach me. This is everything's laid out. So it's like, you'd be like, I emailed because that's what I say I'm gonna do. I'm gonna email, and I did. And then you kind of know what to expect, and then you could also communicate with your child with their work. Well, he expects this. Well, that he said this. I was there when he said that. Then everybody's on the same page, and it's like you know what to tell, how to tell your child, what to expect. Like everything's kind of on the same page. I agree with that.
So expectation, good.
Mm-hmm.
Wrote that down. Expectations.
Not only expressing and verbalizing those expectations, like making sure you communicate though, and everyone knows the expectation. I mean, we ain't nothing but big children. So when you tell us something, we may have to repeat it again, like, now remember, and then follow up with that email. It was so nice meeting you. I'm so glad you understood. Just to reiterate, here's what I expect, here's what this is the kind of teacher I am, or da 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 da. Like, it does seem so excessive, but we are all just, we're just flawed humans. So it just helps to, it's just, you think about the trust that you have with your teacher, and it does mean a lot. And like you said, when you walk in and you see everything and then you communicate, it's like trust is building, those blocks are building one by one with everything you see and with every form of communication. And then, all of that trust is being built over time, and the consistency over time. So that is definitely true, to build trust in that way, and then opening up the lines of communication.
Mhm. For me, I would always say attentiveness, because I've noticed that with my son's daycare teacher. And one thing, when she had suggested for me to get my oldest son Malachi evaluated, she approached it very, in a way to make me feel comfortable. Not that, I would ever feel uncomfortable about, because I always express that I'm like, I'm a parent, I'm not a teacher. I can't see what you see professionally through a parental eye. Because I'm like, what I think is cute, you notice to be something else. And, in the case, because I have younger children. And so, her bringing that to my attention made me realize just how much she pays attention to my children, even like the littlest things that she'll bring to my attention. And on top of that, also taking the time to understand their personality and like know what they like, what they don't like, and their way of having to learn versus other children. And she has like a handful of kids, but she's always on top of this child, what this one needs versus that one, how this one learns versus that one, but also how to set up the environment so everyone can learn together collectively. And that's something that I've always appreciated about their daycare teacher. Now that Malachi is remote learning, what I've come to learn about his remote school teacher, his kindergarten teacher, she's very patient because she's dealing with the kids, dealing with the parents, and everyone tends to talk over each other. Oh, Miss Billups, I need this. Miss Billups, I need that. And it's between parents and teachers, but she's always on top of it. She knows exactly who called out to her. She's like, okay, Wilson, you have to do this. Okay, Miss So-and-so, just give me 1 second. I'm going to email you what to do with this right now. Because, having to work with the technology, work with the kids, work with the parents, she's on top of it. And, knowing that my teachers can be attentive, I can trust that, they have the capacity to handle all the foolishness that's about to come their way. And, I always appreciate about that. And I always wish them the best and try to do my part to be patient and ask them what they need from me, because they're already dealing with so much. So when a teacher's attentive, that's always a very important quality that I appreciate.
So attentive. I have attentive.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if you haven't watched the video that comes or came before this, which started this conversation of the blurred lines. So understanding the role of a teacher, understanding the role as a parent. So I was expressing to my guests that I had this email conversation with a parent about their child, and that they're honestly, we can say they were frustrated. I won't say they were giving up, but in this state, they were kind of giving up. They felt like they did all they could do, but they wanted the teacher to do more. But then from my perspective, I feel like I did all that I can do, especially in a virtual setting. And I wonder, my takeaway from that email conversation is, what is a parent's role and what is a teacher's role? Why are the lines, I want to say now, blurred? Because when I was in school, middle school, elementary school, my mother did certain things at school, my teacher did certain things at school. My parents taught me how to respect teachers and do certain things at school, and my teacher taught me how to understand, honestly, my parents' perspective. Listen to them. They might try to help you, they might teach you some other way, but still acknowledge that you're learning through your parents. But now it's a lot different. I'm a parent, I'm a teacher. So my takeaway from this and why I want this conversation is, why are these lines blurred? Do you feel, you might not feel that they are blurred, but in your conversations with other teachers or other parents, do you feel like the role is more shifted? It's not 50-50, is it 60-40, 70-30? Let's talk about that just a little bit.
Shannon, you're probably more seasoned in
I was about to
this.
say.
Like,
I was like, because my kids are old. I think I have observed how that line has blurred.
Mhm.
It definitely has. Um, because when kids were in school, it would amaze me the lack of parent participation in events that called for a lot of parent participation. And it almost, it's sad because I feel like in some people's situations it could be work responsibilities, some it could just be all out neglect, but I feel like a lot of times it is um our, our work environments, because sometimes I would get really irritated if the school was putting on something and you decided for it to start at 5 o'clock. Like it's hard for a parent to step in and be present in school for those roles where you feel like you're the parent, but then the teachers end up having to take on that responsibility because so and so's parent didn't come, so it's like you're stepping into that role and giving that extra care where normally it would have been a parent. But it's like that is becoming a problem because work isn't like it used to be, where I went to work with my mom on bring your kid to work day. I don't think this generation has probably even ever heard of
No.
bring your kid to work day.
Nope.
And I think as far as the education component is concerned, um, I think people forget we're supposed to reinforce. We're the reinforcements to the education that you all give. We're the reinforcements. Like Kim was saying earlier, we're not built for that. I know I am the one that was like 2 + 2 is 4. like I'm like, Jerron, I can't do it.
Yeah, Darren had to tell me,
help.
this Shannon had to tell me to go away. Like, you just need to walk away.
I can't.
Let me do it.
I don't know why. It's like, is she doing it on purpose? Like, what is, and it's just like, you know what? Let me just tell the teacher, like, I remember it got to one point, I said to my daughter's teacher, I said, if you can send me home some worksheets of what she should be, I'll make sure she sits down to do them. But like I said, it got to the point where Jerron was like, I'll do it. I'll help her with the because we're not built the way our parents were built. I'm sorry. It's an unfortunate thing, but like that patience is like slowly being extracted, and it's being extracted by work and other responsibilities that we're having to try to keep the household going. And it's just like that whole super parent thing. Like some people, the people that have it, I admire it. It's like, you're awesome. You really are awesome.
They are.
I don't have it, and so that's why I try to supplement wherever I can. It's like, if you need help with something, let me know and I'll try to tell you what I could do. But I think a lot of cases where you see that divide, where you get a parent that's emailing you. And I meant to ask you, how old was the child?
7th grade. So that's what, 13, 12,
Okay.
13.
So, and unfortunately, it also goes to, so one thing, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but one thing that I know I had to do, because I was getting really frustrated, because I was like, man, I know by 10 years old, I was riding the bus and catching the train, like, so I started Googling, like, what should a child be able to do at this age? Because I'm not thinking of developmentally. It's just like, I was doing that. Why can't you do that? Like, it really had to get to that level. And I think as parents, we're not trained for that. That wasn't in the parenting class, so it does blur when people don't. I'm not saying you didn't set the expectation, but when you let me know how I can bob and weave with you, then we'll bob, because like I was saying earlier, you're spending more time with my child in the week than I am. So unfortunately, it has no choice but to blur, because then you're dealing with discipline issues because your parents not there to, fortunately, we could put the fear of God in our children if we choose to or not. So I can call home and be like, and then it won't be no thing. But for some people, they just don't have that structure in their household where it is sometimes the teachers that build more of a rapport and a relationship with somebody's child than their own parent. And that's where it blurs. And that's why she called you, because it's like at that point the child respects you more than their own parent.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's what that was.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder why. I mean, not wonder why, but I guess that's a conversation I need to have too. And I talk to my kids all the time, like this honest conversation. I say, let's stop, let's talk. And I do it all the time with the kids, maybe once or twice a week. But I wonder why. I mean, yes, you respect the teacher. Like I said, I was raised to respect the teacher, but I've never had that where I was like, I'm gonna respect my teacher more than my parents. Because you still gotta go home and live with your parents.
Right.
And they still have
But
to
he may
support
not
you.
be, I don't think it's a deliberate, let me do this and let me not do that. It's just at a certain age, even kids from 1 to 2 years old, they gonna try what they try. Like when Lynn was in daycare, the teacher was like, he's only doing that when you're here. Like when you walk away, it does not happen. So even at that age, they're learning what lines to cross with who. So I don't know. I'm obviously a parent of a young child, but I feel like, if what his fear of is either how you view him as a student or what his grades are. So if you were, look, this work that's not done at home will affect your grade here. Like whatever you're not doing there is affecting here. So I can only give you the grade that you earned through doing work at home and doing work here. Like that is the only way you earn the grade. So I don't know what exactly the fear is. And I get it. Like your kids are there more than they are at home. And I'm learning about how my child learns way more now than I would have if I dropped him off. And my trust was high at the school more than not that I don't trust the school, but I'm thinking like, wow, like there's a lot of things that probably slipped through the cracks that I wouldn't have noticed if I would have zoomed off like I used to. Like it would be a quick drop off and that would be it. So like now it's like, okay, so I see how he's learning. I see how and what he's probably going to be missing at school and what I need to kind of reinforce here. So that's one thing that COVID has really taught me is like, okay, this is how he learns. This is what I need to look out for the years to come. But then also the lines are going to blur because when you're a parent and a teacher naturally. And when you're a teacher and a parent, unfortunately, because you are there all day. You're dealing with disciplinary actions. You're dealing with personalities. You're dealing with all that stuff. And it's our job as a parent to kind of rear them up in the way they should go, with the help of everyone else. Like the goal is, from a spiritual standpoint, the goal is to get them to heaven, right? So you get everyone involved to help get them there on that level. So we're all in a team together with this child. But like you said, like Shannon was saying, the expectations in the beginning, like when you meet that teacher, my job as an educator, as his teacher, is to do A, B, C, D. This is what my job as an educator is. What I expect from you in this collaboration is A, B, C, D. So like when you're talking about that with the parent and you say, that unfortunately will be your back pocket when you do deal with them later and say, listen, as an educator, like we spoke, my job is to present things to help him learn in this way. That is my job. If you don't feel he's retaining that information, then you will find out during the test. And then I will give you more information on what you can do. If you feel it's an issue, then here's a parenting resource, or here's like having some sort of resource. Like, to me, it's like church, school, parent. Like that is the trifecta of bringing up a child, right? In my view. So it's like right now, we really ain't going to church and they ain't going to school. Like, so this trifecta is like pretty much us like, okay, so what can we pull from you to help this? And then if you don't know, is there resources that you have? Like as a teacher, having those resources in your back pocket and say, look, this is where I stop, but this is where parenting begins. And if you do have trouble there, here is a resource for you that can help you. But I am not that person. So just like if you have a special needs child, like they will be like, okay, here's the test. Can you take this child here to get tested? Or can you take this child here? Because I noticed they're not seen correctly in class, but maybe you can take them to an eye doctor. But just like behavior issues, like if you feel your child is doing this, here is, I'm not, no shade, but the parent need to be open. Okay, here's a therapist. Oh, here's the parenting, like whatever it is. But as a parent, no matter how young you are, if you're a good teacher, I'm gonna look to you and be like, okay, what do you think though? What do you suggest in this situation? And you may have to say, that's not really me, but I can help, I want to help you as a child. Do you want a parent teacher conference? Do you want me to get on a conference with you and your child? But I'm not in your home, and I can't be there. So, I mean, just calling that meeting and say, hey, if he's not doing his work with you and he's doing with me, can we have a parent teacher Zoom real quick and I can talk to them? But that's really where it ends, you know?
Yeah. To a point that Shannon made earlier when she emailed the teachers about letting them know like what her daughter's like. She's like, listen, she'll do this. And it's very important to know your child. And then like Kim said, to work in this collaboration with your teachers, because you have to know your kids. Because unfortunately, well, I have younger kids now, so I'm not there yet. But when I was in high school, there were some kids who would like deliberately get lied on in a parent teacher conference. Cause sometimes you sit there waiting your turn and you if you nosy, you listen in like me. And sometimes the teachers will like lie on the kids because they want to get a reaction out of the parents. And as a parent, you have to be aware of the type of person that your child is, but you pray to God that you have a good teacher who's also, you're not in this like limbo state of choosing between the two. But then to like bring it back to like where the lines get blurred, the teachers are with the kids, all these kids, 20 plus kids, all day, every day. Parents pick them up, drop them off, see you when I see you. Now that we're in this remote learning environment, parents are only getting a taste of what teachers do on a daily. And 2 days into it, I was over it. I said, no, Jesus, please pay them more money because this is too much. And to use an analogy, it's like the parents and the teachers are in the business of our children. So there's the parenting department and then there's the teaching department. And, you have to have your constant check-ins and meetings to make sure the business is running smoothly. If we don't, as parents, like Kim was saying, we have to kind of balance everything. And when your trifecta falls apart and everything like is back to just you have to use whatever resources are available to you. And with teachers, and I only know this because I have friends that are teachers, some family members that are teachers, they don't have enough resources. They already didn't have resources to start with before this happened. And let's not even get on this topic of the Department of Education. It's another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But we just really have to like dig deep within ourselves. And then, as parents, we have to just reach out to our teachers when we're like at our limit. And I feel like teachers should also do the same because, they're trying their best. You as a parent, you're trying your best. If you have more than one child, you got to like handle different children, different teachers. So at the end of the day, we all want to do the best that we can with what we have. And it's hard when we're not giving each other a chance to do that. And I feel like that's when the lines get blurred. Like we don't give each other a chance to do our jobs, and also having to realize that our roles kind of swap a lot because teachers kind of have to learn how to be parents a little bit, just like parents kind of have to learn to be teachers. So that's another reason why we really have to depend on each other, because we're teaching and learning from each other as we're teaching our children.
No, thank you. No, these are good. Like these are my little notes I adding up here. But and another thing, so I'm taking away from this, which is good, is helping me as reflect as a teacher. And it's okay that these lines are blurred. It's okay that they are merging, and I won't even say blurred now. Like there is this intersection that is visible to me or to teachers that need to happen. And that's how the success of a child, that's the success of a parent and a teacher works. With not these lines being blurred, they're visible, and it's like this intersection between them all. If there is this one question, and I know Kim and Tatiana, your kids are younger, but I think it's still a relevant conversation. But kind of my ending type of question is, as a teacher, I've realized in this generation, and I'm teaching middle school right now, they don't know certain things. And in the, I guess, climate that we're living in now, yes, yes, we now have a president elect and we have a black vice president elect, which is a woman. But before all of that happened,
You can say it again. You can say it again.
give a
It's
moment of
okay.
silence.
It's okay. You can say it again.
Yeah. So now we do have a vice president elect that is a black woman, an immigrant woman, multiracial woman. But before all of that happened, we had this whole Black Lives Matter movement. We had this segregation before even that, and we had discrimination. And I felt as though it was my role as a teacher to kind of talk about those things in the classroom. But I got pushback, honestly, from parents. And I know there's limits to every conversation that you have to have. But I said I wanted them to know, of course, because we were in the school buildings, that I teach a majority of minority students. So it's Black and brown students, Black, Latino, Africans, we're all that minority group. And I wanted them to understand, once they leave these four walls, you have to understand that a perception of who you are is changed. Everyone doesn't see you the same. We had those conversations, but I got pushback. And I wanted to know from a parent's perspective, did I go too far? When should that be introduced? Who should introduce that conversation? Because even with the students' conversation, a lot of them didn't understand it. They didn't know Black Lives Matter or the whole movement. They didn't yes, they study Black history, in February, where it's this big emphasis, and they understand all of the roles that everyone has played in the Black history of America. But a real in-depth conversation has never happened. Whose role is that? Is that the teacher? Is that the parent? Just trying to get some perspective on that.
That's both of our roles. It's the teachers and the parents. And I think because you have older students, the fact that you even took the time to think about that and introduce that to them was very important, because you have Black and brown students who do not get seen as children the moment they walk out the doors of school and home. And I think you doing that allows them as older children to open up the conversation to their parents, who then can take it upon themselves to either let you know they probably don't want to talk to them about it at school and they rather have the conversation at home, or whatever the case is. But you doing that, planting the seed, is important because their lives are that important. Their safety is important. If they're unaware of those things, it's difficult being a minority child in America. And it's our responsibility as the adults in their lives to let them know what's going on, because like you said, none of them had an inkling of what you were talking about. And that's a reflection where you kind of have to take a step back as a parent, as a teacher, like, well, I need to talk to my kids about this. And the older you get, the more important it becomes. And it's important because when incidents happen on a scale that movements are happening, that they can physically see what's happening, but they're not understanding. And if you don't see your school is making an effort to step up and let the children know what's going on, because these are things that affect them, I feel like as a parent, I feel like as a teacher, you did the right thing. And if I felt a little salty about it because maybe I wanted to be the one to talk about it, I'm just gonna have to deal with that. I can talk to you offline privately about that, but I think as a teacher who has older children who can physically see what's going on and things can happen to these children, I think you did the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, I also think, like, at the end of the day, topics come up whether you bring it up or not. So if you're in a classroom full of kids, 7th, 8th grade, especially around there, and someone brings up something, whether it's offensive, whether it's not, whether it's just information, I think it's your job to guide that information correctly. So just like if some students in 7th and 8th grade, let's say they're talking about something that has to do with, sexuality or anything that has to do boy girl relationships or anything, and they're misusing terms or they're talking about things that are more mature beyond their understanding. I think it is your job to bring it back and say, okay, here is the scope of what you're looking at, and here's your role, or here's what you should expect as a person, or here's your value. You know, does everyone understand what value is as a person, or does everyone understand what equality means, or why some people think they're not as equal as others? Do you ever feel a certain way when you walk out? Does anyone feel anything about this? Like, providing a safe place for that child is very important. And I think being quiet can feel unsafe for certain kids, like going into a school and not hearing about anything that could make that child feel like, okay, this isn't a safe place for me to mention that maybe I feel unwanted, or at church I'm around all white people and I feel this way, but then in school nobody's talking about it, so maybe it's not true, maybe it's not real. Validating is important, and I think especially when you're up in that age in 7th, 8th grade, I vividly remember teachers, like one of my favorite teachers that I literally got on a Zoom with, Shannon, I don't know if you remember Mr. West. I literally got on a Zoom with him um, for a pastor appreciation Zoom. I hadn't talked to him since I was in high school. But I remember in history class, he was mandated to use the history book, and he put that thing on top of his head and he was like, this is not history. And he put it on top, he said, but they said we have to use it. So put it on your heads and I'm gonna tell you what American history is. And I'll never forget that. And it's like, I know a lot of parents were just like, you know, but it's like, he went through the entire history throughout that whole year of what real American and Black American history is. And I am literally 37 years old, and I remember that so vividly, to where the point where I actually was able to come back 20 some years later on the Zoom and just thank him and say, thank you for taking that time to veer away from whatever agenda they told you to do and teach me as a person my value and my real history. And that made a difference in my trajectory of my life. So I feel like even if you feel pushback here and there, there's a difference that's being made in these kids' lives by you mentioning their value and the truth about what's going on, because they're with you most of the time. Like, if they don't hear that validation and have that safe space, you know, they need it from somewhere. And your job as a whole educator, you know, you can't leave out parts. And I think, as you mentioned before, like, there's certain things that kids don't know. And it's true, because life is moving on, and like, my son is 6, he can't read a clock. Well, not really, kind of, and not really, but he can read the time on my phone. You know, things are moving in a certain way, and we have to keep up and not be so rigid to what's, you know, life moves on and things are happening in the world. And it's like, it's important that you open up the floor and bring that up. So I think, you know, I can't speak to what exactly you said, but I think opening up a safe space for them and addressing it when it's being addressed behind closed doors and could be wrong. Maybe they're discussing in the bathroom and they're wrong. You know, for you to have a clear and open discussion and say, let me correct the errors that you may have made, or let me set the scope of what you need to understand, is really important from an authoritative figure, instead of just leaving it up to whatever they want to discuss. You know what I mean? So I think that is extremely important. And like I said, I remember from 20 years ago having those conversations in school when other parents may not have thought it was right. So I think that was important.
Yeah, Shannon, right before, I know you're about to say something, but
Yeah.
and why I brought the conversation up, because when I pick, as an ELA teacher, I pick reading material where the students can see themselves within the text. And you have to think, every author writes based off of their experience, whether it's fictional or non-fictional. So a lot of their books, you can't overstep or overlook that message that the author is presenting in the book. So I was just like, I can't let it pass. In this one book that we're reading right now, it's a great book for middle schools. And Shannon, I can share with you the Harlem Charade. And it's talking about like Harlem Renaissance era and how it was built upon, and how Harlem, you know, how it originated and how it started. But it's talking about it in now the 21st century, in the 2000s, and how the children are being impacted by the community. So I couldn't let that, you know, not be heard of or spoken of, and let them understand what America actually went through that time and what it represented. So that's why that whole conversation, to me, and like you're saying, it should happen. It basically should happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I fully agree with what Tatiana and Kim were saying, but I can definitely say I have seen the pettiness that happens to teachers when they make those moves now. Mr. West was a dope teacher, but I'm sure if Mr. West was teaching now, they would have been calling for his whole certification, everything.
They were
Um,
then. That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
They were then.
yeah. And so what I would advise to you, because they unfortunately some parents like the box, right? For me, my fear as an African American mother is my kids not being ready. Like, I don't want you going out there thinking everybody thinks that you're sweet. No, we're at the store. Don't put your hand near that because I don't want nobody thinking that you took something. Like I need you to be aware. Unfortunately, everybody is not thinking like that. They would rather their kids stay safe. And they don't realize the danger that they put their kids in when they think that they're constantly safe.
That part.
So one thing that I would encourage, and one thing that my kids aren't in that private school institution anymore, they're in public school. And one of their teachers, so one thing that's always concerned me is they're quick to throw on a movie or read some books that I'm not necessarily okay with. But what I really appreciate is on Sundays, their ELA teacher sends out almost kind of like a little newsletter saying, hey, this is what's going on for the week. We'll be starting such and such book. And I looked up the book. Nah, not cool with that, So I was able to email her and be like, I'm not really comfortable with that book choice. It's not really something that I would be comfortable with my son reading. She's like, that's why I send out the newsletters so that parents can have the opportunity to let me know and say something because we can counter move or whatever. So if in your lesson plans or even just in society, like say like it was election day and you're like, I want to talk to these kids about the things that are going on with this so-called voter fraud or impeding people from voting and stuff like that, shoot out an email to the parents. Hey, I know this is what's going on in our society. This is something that I would like to talk to the kids about. I want to give you all the opportunity if you wanted to speak with your children about it first before I did, that communication thing. Again, like it is something because again, teachers are a part of our village. That's why I want my kids' teachers to know I am here. Anything, because I want you to look out for my child like it was your child. You know what I mean? So it's like you give me that way. I have no problem with you talking to my child about whatever, because hopefully I would have talked to them about it already. But even if it's something that might have just fell off, it can be like, okay, on Tuesday, Mr. Daly's gonna be talking to you guys about, so do you have any, it is a
Like
part of that
mm-hmm.
trust and that communication together, that village. Like I'm so about the village. Like if you see my kid and you see him doing something, please say something, see something, say something, I'm not the parent that's like, don't nobody say nothing to my kid. No, because kids, if you don't deal with stuff as it's happening,
exactly,
it's gone after that. And like Kim said, you don't want kids walking around thinking this is like, I'm talking about this, but it's like, that's not what you said. You're talking about something totally different, and right. You can say, hey, in class today, the kids were having a conversation about whatever. It's something I would like to address with them. Does anybody have a problem? Because if you don't want them in on that Zoom, make a separate Zoom. I mean, I know it creates a little more work or whatever, but I feel like there's always a way around it because there are some parents that aren't equipped to have that kind of conversation, but they want their kids to be able to have that kind of conversation. So it's like, if you're willing to talk about it, go right on ahead,
Yes.
So
and you hear things that the parents don't hear. So you're saying, I hear this conversation happen in the classroom. I'm letting you know this needs to be addressed only because it was in front of the class and this is what they heard and this is incorrect or this is what they need to understand. Like They're
And
not
to
there. They don't
protect
know the kind of
yourself.
stuff.
Yeah.
Parents will be
And
shocked if they heard some of the conversations these kids be having at school.
listen, and also because we're in this age of technology and kids have access to older kids especially, they have access to all this stuff, learning from the internet, learning from their friends, and really choosing not to really, because I mean kids, they don't talk to us. They don't talk to us. They learn everything from their friends. They learn everything from the internet. They're not gonna bring it to adults' attention. So like, Shannon and Kim were saying, you as a teacher correcting it is, the way to go. But also including the parents and let them know, hey, this is what's happening, this is what's being heard, and things like that. I would like to address it as such.
And you're not being a snitch either, because you're not saying who said what. You're just like, I just overheard some things that I just want to clarify for everybody. Well, who said what? I don't want to address who said anything.
It was a blur. It was all a blur.
I just heard it in passing, and I just want to address the conversation. Because like you said, like I feel like they were saying earlier, teachers are definitely underpaid. I feel like the title doesn't fit the job, because you're so much more than a teacher. And I hope you realize that, like, you are so much more than just a teacher.
And I ain't crying today. I ain't crying.
Look, I'm not gonna start. You already know how I feel.
I'm just saying,
I ain't crying.
because it really is. And it's not saying that you're replacing the parent. I remember it was a sermon I heard a while ago where it says you have mothers, mentors, and moments that that build who you are. So you're like, that's why I will always know who all my kids' teachers are, because your life and things that you are giving to them will follow them for a lifetime. And especially if you're a good teacher, and if you know that I'm watching my kid, then you even look out more for my kid. So just realize you're more than just the ELA teacher. You make a connection with these kids. Like you said, on a weekly basis, you stop everything and ask the kids what's going on. For some kids, they may have never had that with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Even stop and ask that question.
Yeah,
like, me? What's going on with me? Like,
yeah, you care about it. It's monumental. So I think to protect yourself, because we are in a new day and age. People aren't comfortable with everything. People don't want their kids to know everything. People don't want, and it's so much more than just the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, some kids don't even realize that people don't like them just because of the color of their skin. And then you send them out into a world, and then they get bullied. They think they're getting bullied on the job, when that's just normal treatment for us. You know what I mean? So it's just like, we, as Black and brown people, we have to build our kids with tougher skin. And I feel like people are not giving them the tough skin. Like, yeah, it might have been hard for us as kids, but it has made us the driven, thick-skinned people that, so what, you call me so-and-so, and you're not affecting my check. You know what I'm saying? As long as you ain't hurt, as long as you don't put your hands on me, we're good. Okay? So it's just protect yourself. You hear something, or even if coming up there's something you want to discuss, just shoot out a quick email and saying, hey, this has been on my heart and my mind, and I hope that you all will be open to me discussing it with the kids, because I do think it is beneficial to their growth and development, because this society is not the same.
No, I appreciate this. I really do. I have had to learn that my role is important. And that's why, and even to wrap this up, that's why I became a teacher, because I understood the role of a teacher, and that this journey of teaching is going to be difficult, and it's going to have its ups and downs. And that's why I want to have these conversations. And it's so I can reflect on my practices, and hopefully encourage other teachers to reflect on their practices, to change their ways, and even to become a better teacher. Because some seasoned teachers, they're like, this is who I am, this is what I do. And some of us millennial teachers who are new in this game, this is who we are, this is what we're going to do. But there is this like push and pull that we have to learn through this conversation. And I do truly appreciate this conversation. And then just honestly, you might be intentionally, but you're pouring into me, helping me with my practices. And I just appreciate you taking your time away from your kids. Y'all probably like, thank you for this time away from you.